absolutely fine. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us. My name's Megan. I'm in the marketing and communications team at the Audience Agency. For audio description purposes, I'm a white woman with sort of medium length, straight, dark brown hair, and I'm wearing a dark pinky sweater today. And I've got a sort of halo effect going on behind me because it is miraculously sunny today in Manchester. Very rare. We all get quite excited. Also with me is my colleague Lucy, who I won't put on the spot to introduce just now, but she is going to be around throughout the session today. She's giving us a wave there. So if you do have any questions as we go through, please do pop them in the chat. I might not see them, but if you pop them in the chat as we go, Lucy will see them and be able to hopefully answer them. Well, I'm sure she can answer them as we go through. One more thing just to mention is that we do have Zoom's live captioning enabled, not live captioning, automated captioning enabled. So if you want to take advantage of that, you can just switch it on via the control panel at the bottom of your screen. So let me just fire up. Here we go. So today is an introduction to Audience Answers and Audience Spectrum, amongst other things. We do these sessions sort of semi-regularly for organisations, cultural organisations who are using our tools and services directly. And what we found is there's been a bit of appetite for a sort of more targeted session for people who are working in the context you folks are as freelancers, consultants, agencies. Slightly different spin on a session that we do for our regular cultural organisations as well. So we're going to be about maximum of an hour today. So if you do need to dash off for school runs, other meetings, Christmas shopping, whatever, we don't mind. That's absolutely fine. We're going to assume you've not got a huge amount of pre-existing knowledge. That might mean that for some of you, we're going to cover some familiar territory, but hopefully you'll still get something new out of it as well. That's our hope. We'll have a look at we'll obviously talk about what the kind of tools and services that we have are, but we'll also have a look at them as well in the wild, as it were, and so you can get a feel for what's available. Any data that we share is fake or anonymized, so we're not going to be sharing any client data. We'll also do a couple of updates of some projects that we're working on that might be of interest to people here. And we'll hopefully give a bit of space and time for some questions at the end if you do have them. So hopefully that all sounds good, and hopefully the technology is going to work for me to do the screen sharing. I don't usually do these events solo, so we'll see how we go. I'm going to put a lot of faith in my ability here to Zoom, but we will see how we get on. So a very quick introduction for those who maybe don't know us or haven't worked with us for a while. We are the Audience Agency. We are a very distributed team. We work all over the UK. We've even got some colleagues who are, I believe, in other countries, abroad. We've got a colleague in Brazil, all over the place. But our kind of fundamental mission is what's noted on the slide here. It's about sharing insight to help the cultural sector adapt for and with their communities. And what that means in practice is that we are a non-profit, we're a non-profit charity. One of the key things that we do is that we have an enormous data set drawn over many, many years from cultural organisations across the country who have worked with us in various capacities. And it means we've got probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, we haven't actually tested that claim, data sets about what's going on in the cultural sector and how people are actually booking and what they're actually doing. And that allows us to do really strong evidence-based work in terms of research, but also in terms of consultancy and sort of advice and support for cultural organisations. And it's not just cultural organisations we're working with. We also work with local authorities, regional authorities, national authorities in some cases, as well as some of the big funders. We have a contract, for example, with Creative Scotland. We've previously worked quite a lot with Arts Council England, for example. And our kind of services are a mix of bespoke consultancy and sort of off-the-shelf tools. We're going to probably lean a bit more into the off-the-shelf stuff today, but we are always we've got a great team of very, very experienced experts, consultants with a very diverse range of experience. And we're always up for having a conversation if for any sort of partnerships or co-projects or working together, that team is there as well to speak to. So our areas of expertise are the sort of 5 pillars, I suppose, if you want to put it like that. It's really audience development is our bread and butter. It's at the heart of everything we do. My own background is in marketing and audience development. Same with lots of my colleagues. So we work with organisations to produce audience development plans, to do full consultancy from conception through to delivery, or just to do a little bit of help support with the planning process. We do evaluation. Again, that's one of our kind of main strands, has been for years. Evaluation of projects, evaluation of work in all sorts of ways. We are taking on more and more work in this digital transformation area as well. I'll touch on a couple of those projects sort of towards the end of the session, but we've brought on board some more experts now in that area. So we've got a really strong team now who can support that kind of work. Creative economy, again, another big strand of our work, has been for a long time. And finally on there, creative places. Place feels like it's such a buzzword at the moment, doesn't it, in the cultural sector? And again, we've got experts in that side of things as well who are delivering that work. So I'm going to talk for a little bit about audience answers. That's a name, a term that you might have heard kicking around. You might be really familiar with it, or this might be completely new to you. But it's just audience answers is one of our kind of it's like one of our flagship products, I suppose, and is an umbrella term for a set of tools that we offer both to cultural organisations and to people who are like yourselves who are working adjacent to and with cultural organisations. And the sort of ethos behind Audience Answers is that it's about helping people do the things that I've listed on there, those 3 things listed on that slide there. It's about understanding their audiences at the moment, who they're currently engaging with, who have they got coming through the doors or engaging with them in some way. It's also about identifying potential new audiences or underserved audiences. Very important for a lot of organisations. If you're commercial, you're looking for the new audiences to grow your income. If you are subsidised and you've got a commitment to work with your local communities, then you want to know who those underserved local communities are. And then most importantly, I think the third point on there is that we want it to be actionable. We want all of these tools to help you learn how best to proceed from there. Okay, I know about this now. What can I do with it? How can I actually go out and reach those audiences? So that's the kind of ethos behind Audience Answers. We'll get into a little bit more of the detail of actually what those tools are in a sec, but just to kind of set the scene. And we do try to make them those tools as accessible as we can to as many organisations as we can. So we do have free options, although a lot of the things we're going to talk about here do have some cost to them. We've also got a lot of options that are free. So hopefully you don't feel that it's too much hard sell and more like just information about what's available. Lots of things available for free with no commitment. We do have one-off reports that we can do for people, one-off off-the-shelf packages of work that we can do. And then there are also some services that are subscription based, so they last for a year or longer, depending on the size of your organisation, the scope of your organisation, etc., etc. And then on the same side of the coin, I suppose, I was going to say the flip side, but it's really the same side. Bad analogy. Audience Spectrum is another one of our kind of key tools and our key services. It's been around for a long, long time. And many people who've been I've been using Audience Spectrum, I think, since my very first arts marketing job a very long time ago. So it's a really well-established tool that we feel is a bit of a kind of common language nowadays for cultural audiences. But for anyone who's not familiar with it, I'm not going to go into massive detail here. I'm sure Lucy can, if she hasn't already, post some links to further information, and we'll certainly send it out in follow-up emails if you would like to explore that a bit more. But essentially, it's a segmentation and it's based on those large data sets I referenced at the beginning, which are about what people actually do, how they engage with arts and culture, the tickets they're buying, the things that they're going to, everything that we know about the kind of cultural activity in this country over a very long period. And then it's overlaid with lots of other sources of data, for example, the census or the various iterations of the DCMS's Taking Part survey. It keeps changing its name and I can't remember where we're up to now, but you probably know the one I mean. So it's layering in lots and lots of data so that we can build up a segmentation that's about people's arts and culture engagement, but it's also about their lives, their lifestyles, their life stages, their general, their general kind of persona, as it were. There are 10 segments. Then we also, a couple of years ago, did some work where we'd actually got into those segments in a little bit more depth, and we subdivided them into 20 subsegments now as well. So if you are finding, for example, in some areas, you can have one segment that's really dominant in a population, and that's of limited use in terms of thinking about, marketing and engagement efforts. You can now drill down into that sub-segment level and get a little bit more detail about the variations within that top level segment as well. Really useful tool to have. So I'm not going to bleat on too much about audience spectrum because you can go and explore it yourself. You might know it really, really well already, and there's other things we want to talk about. But just be aware that it's a thread that's running through everything that we're doing. We think it's really useful. I've certainly found it very useful in my previous marketing manager / freelancer life, and hopefully it's something that you would find valuable as well. So putting those things together, what's the sort of things these could do? I mean, you're probably thinking of these already yourself, and you're probably, way ahead of me in terms of this. But just to run through quickly, what we're hoping those tools can help you do is if you're working with a cultural organisation of some description, you can start to get a sense of who their current audiences are in lots of different dimensions, not just the kind of basic, for example, visitor numbers or sales trends or booking patterns, but also the more kind of human behavioral stuff. Who really are these people? What do they want? What are they motivated by? What do they like to do? Which is obviously intel that is so useful if you're an organisation with limited resource, trying to think about engagement strategies, trying to think about target audiences, having that kind of broader insight into really who these people are that you're currently reaching is hopefully going to be really useful. Then on the flip side of that, these tools hopefully can help you do some market analysis and identify opportunities for development, whatever development for that organisation. Depends on their strategies and their business objectives. It could be new audiences, it could be loyalty, it could be purely commercial, getting more money in. It could also help you support funding bids. Perhaps you've got organisations that are going for example, NPO status or putting in a big capital bid. This is all data that can help support those. And then also, as I touched on before, it can help you reach those underrepresented communities and identify where the gaps are and where the opportunities might be. Point 3 on there, hopefully this puts you in a position as a consultant or as an advisor, however, to recommend next steps for that organisation that are really rooted in real data. It's not just pie in the sky, not that you would do that, you know what I mean. Just gives you that security that what you're recommending and what you're advising that organisation to take forward is kind of grounded in data and grounded in useful real world information. So now we're going to sort of drilling down a little bit, done the big picture. What could those tools actually look like? What sort of things are we talking about here when we make these grandiose statements about help you understand current audiences? Very practically, and we will look at in a sec, we'll go and have a look at some of these dashboards and some of these reports as well, so you can get a sense of what they look and feel like. For current audiences, we can obviously do lots of different ways of analysing them, think about them in different ways. A really key way is we can look at ticketing data. Box office systems are massively rich sources of information about people and about people's behaviour. So we can do a lot of analysis of ticketing behaviour. We can profile as long as we've got a postcode in some way, we can profile by audience spectrum. So that's going to give you all that stuff around behaviours and motivations. We can look at geography. We can look at how far people are travelling. That might be useful if you're doing environmental impact studies as well, or even just at a very practical level, might help you decide where you should be placing advertising on the railways or whatever it is, your Facebook geo-targeting. Lots of things you can do there with the geographic stuff. And then we have good old audience surveys, very popular, very beloved of us, and perhaps not so beloved of the people that have to fill them in, but we'll leave that one for today. But they are incredibly valuable for getting into that motivations, demographics, opinions, and also for a lot of organisations, they do now have to do them for their funding requirements. So they're really crucial for a lot of people. Flip side, thinking about that, understanding the potential audience that's out there, the people that you maybe are not at the moment immediately engaging with, but could be an opportunity, particularly if you're a consultant and advisor who's kind of been brought in to study this. We can help you pass through all the tons and tons of population data that's out there. We can create some reports that really drill into the demographics of an area that you're working in. We can look at what the audience spectrum segmentation of that population is and the levels of cultural engagement within an area of your choice. There's also really, I think it's very cool, this is possibly me showing my nerdiness a little bit. There are some very cool reports we can do which actually overlay population data with current booking data from an organisation. Let's take a theatre, for example, and then overlay that again with audience spectrum data. So what we can actually start to do then is look at where in an area of your choosing, where the best potential for engagement might be. Those places where we've got lots of people who should be engaged with this theatre, but for whatever reason, they're not, and we can help you find where those little pockets might be. I think it's a very cool report, but that's just me and my little nerdiness. If you'd like to explore that a little bit with us, you're very welcome to come and have a chat with us. And then finally, there's this kind of third strand here, which sort of layers into this understanding potential audiences, I think, a little bit, doesn't it? This is about our kind of bigger picture research that we're doing. It's ongoing. We have, very specialist staff who are doing this all the time. And it's a mixture that we're doing of exploring the trends from those big data sets that we've got. So we're looking for changing patterns of engagement. We're looking for anything that feels notable and significant in the wider cultural sector, particularly in, obviously this has been huge in the post-COVID recovery period and everything else that has happened since, just keeping an eye on what's going on. And then we also have what we call the Cultural Participation Monitor, which is a survey fundamentally that's going out on a regular basis to a representative sample of the population. And it's looking at the sort of gnarly issues of the day, I would say. So we ask all sorts of questions in that about attitudes, about willingness to engage. We've asked people about how they feel about repatriation of museum exhibits and to the countries from which they were originally taken. We get into the things with the Cultural Participation Monitor. We've asked about whether people like to receive gift vouchers as presents, because we know that's something that a lot of performing arts organisations particularly lean into at this time of year. So it can be very random and very diverse, but that's the joy of it, I think. And we share those findings both on our website. It's free. You don't need to log in, just have a look at it. But we also have these regular, we call them tea breaks. T stands for talking, evidence and audiences. It's not just an excuse to have a cup of tea, though I love a cup of tea. We do them once a month-ish. We talk about the current findings, what we're exploring. We often have a little bit of a chat about whether that reflects what people are seeing in their own organisations. They're just a really nice way to kind of get that bigger context of what's going on. And the archive of all the tea breaks is on YouTube if you ever want to go and have a watch. I think one of the things which is probably quite perhaps relevant to people who are working in a consultancy way with clients is that some of these things can leave a bit of a legacy from, so say you're going in and you're doing a piece of work that's a time limited piece of work with a client. Some of these tools could help you embed a bit of a legacy of being a little bit more evidence-based, a bit more data-led in that organization. Um, Again, it's things like you might, encourage the organization to set up a survey to which they can monitor and track. If you've done a big piece of audience development strategy work with them, these are the tools that could help that organization then track progress against those objectives that have been set in that project. So again, that could be getting them to sign up for one of these ticketing dashboards, which we'll have a look at in a sec. It could be a survey. We can actually embed audience spectrum right into their ticketing system as well, so they can get really granular within their own ticketing system. So it's just about that idea of, we've all done it. We've sort of done a report or we've done a presentation and we've handed it over to the organisation. You think, well, is that it? Is it just going to go on a shelf and never be read again, or someone's going to rest their coffee mug on it and it's never going to get opened? These are some of the things that hopefully we could encourage those organisations to kind of keep going and keep monitoring, keep tracking, keep moving forwards with their plans. So I'm going to stop doing this for a sec and we'll go and have a look at a couple of things specifically. Lucy, do we have any questions it's worth picking up on whilst we're here?
We don't yet, but if anybody has any, please do put them in the chat, and we can send you any links or get to them when we do. But it would be nice to know if anybody has used Audience Spectrum, and if you've used any of these tools, it would be great to just know from people in the room if they've used them for anything and what else we might be able to provide.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Stick it in the chat if you have got comments in that direction. But no, that was thank you. Gave me an opportunity to have a swig of water. Much appreciated. This is it. I'm going to have a little quick fly through the audience answers dashboard, as we call it. Not all of the tools that we've mentioned before are dashboard based. Some of them are one-off reports that you can just buy off the shelf, although they come under the audience answers brand, as it were. So this is an audience answers dashboard. This is an example organization I've got here. Now, this is available. Anyone can go and look at audience answers. There's all the stuff is on here about this. I won't go into it in detail because we've talked about it already. But under the Our Solutions tab here, you've got the kind of general gist of what we offer. Also here is the sector evidence section. This is again free, no login needed. This is where you'll find all that stuff I talked about just now about our kind of big picture overview research. It's just free, available, no login needed, all good. Go and explore to your heart's content. What we'll spend a little bit of time on is this your data section. This is an area where if you have some of our services set up, this is where you will find that data, or a cultural organisation would find that data. It's behind a login to keep it secure and to keep it private. If you're working with an organisation, as I say, we do have hundreds, possibly I think definitely into four figures of organisations working with us. So you might be working with a museum or a theatre or whatever. They may already have data in here, and it might be useful for you to have sight of that, particularly if you're doing some work, some evaluation work or audience development work. We can set you up, as obviously with the permission of the organisation you're working with, we can set you up with access to this dashboard, so you can see what they can see, basically. And that, again, I've certainly found in past life this really helpful to be able to dig around in the client's data and see what they've been doing. And in some cases, this could be really long-term data. This could go back 10 years in some cases, in terms of ticket data and survey data that they've got. So there are two main. If you want to say, if you do ever want to be set up with that, you just need to drop us an email and we'll make sure we get the permissions from the right people and get you access. So that's perfectly doable. There are kind of two main sections to have a quick look at here. I've mentioned them both briefly before, but this is this is the ticketing dashboard. So this is essentially where we're processing data from an organisation's booking system and presenting it in a way which hopefully makes getting those insights really easy and quick for them. So we've got here, it's a connection between their ticketing system and our audience answer system, which is extracting data every day, processing it, anonymising it, and popping it in here. So I won't go through it in massive detail, but just to give you an idea of what there, you can obviously choose a range, look at, you can choose a comparison date range this year versus last year if you want to. And then it's going to present some top line sales data here. Probably the most interesting bit here is this benchmark here. This is an anonymized, we can't tell organizations who they're benchmarked against, but essentially it's 10 organizations of a similar size to them who are working in a similar kind of scope. That we are benchmarking against. So it's just to give an organisation an idea of how they match to not necessarily competitors, because those organisations could be anywhere in the country, but to similar scale venues. Got bookers, income, tickets and yield. I don't think I need to go over that in detail. Probably you're very familiar with that. We've got catchment area mapping here. They're just showing roughly where 75% of bookers are coming from for that organisation. And then down towards the bottom of the page here, this is the juicy stuff. This is where we've got the audience spectrum profile of that audience. The profile is presented matched against the catchment area population. So you've got, for example, here, you've got the metroculturals at the top of that graph there, who are shown in red, and then the hatched bar below it is the catchment area population. So you can very quickly start to get a sense of where that over and under representation is that you've got going on. This hypothetical organisation has got some work to do with some of these segments down here that aren't so well represented in its population, but it's doing really nicely with its commuter and culture stuff, possibly over-representing on them. You can link through from any of these to the full profiles of all of these segments as well. There are some, I'm not going to dwell too much on them here because you guys probably aren't, it's not so relevant for you guys, but you can add various upgrades to this dashboard as well. You can get into some really quite granular reporting for people as well, but that's probably for the organisation that has the dashboard to make that decision on. Come and have a chat with us if you think you get some value from those. We can do things in the dashboard like group types of performances together and do the analysis just on those. So where we've got at the top here at the moment, grouping by range. With those upgraded filters, you could, for example, group together all the Christmas shows from this year and last year and compare them. All the children's shows, compare them this year to last year. Those are the sorts of tools that are in there for those upgrades. People want to pursue those. So that's the ticketing side of things. Very briefly, we'll come and have a quick look at the survey. So our surveys are audience surveys. They're designed for people who are audiences. Sounds a bit silly, but essentially we're not looking at participants in education programs or workshops or people who engage with content online. It's very much about people who visited and they purchased a ticket or they came through the door of a museum or whatever. They are designed to be completely compatible with all the funder requirements that are out there. Won't delve into that because it's complicated. But if you are working with an organisation that is NPO or funded by Creative Scotland, these surveys will satisfy the requirements of those funders and gather all that data that it needs. There's a core set of questions about demographics and about group size, about motivations, about opinions. That's all in there. And you can add questions to that as well. We've got hundreds of different questions. It's a whole library that you can add. And then it's all presented. The organisation sends out this survey either by email to their bookers, or they perhaps, if they're a non-ticketed organisation, a gallery or a museum, they can do this survey on site, on a tablet, and the results will come in instantly into this dashboard here. So the whole thing is designed to sort of feel easy for people. There's no kind of like trawling through great big Excel files or having to design the questions for yourself or having to analyse them. It's just all there and you can go in very quickly, look at these questions and pull off a quick chart, a quick graph, a quick overview of what's going on. I'm not going to spend too much more time digging into surveys there because a survey is a survey at the end of the day. I'm sure you've all seen plenty of them before. But they are they're really well designed by a really expert team who will just sort of take all of that hard work off the hands and set that up for you. So, this is surveys and that is ticketing. Those are the two elements of the audience answer service that need to be, you need a login for basically, because it's all tucked away behind a secure login. I'm going to mosey on over and have a quick look at the Audience Spectrum site here. Again, not in huge detail because you can go and explore it in your own time if you haven't already. But a couple of things to pick out. This is where you'll find the really in-depth guides to all of the segments. You've got metroculturals, for example. You've got really detailed guides here about who these people are, where they are, how you can engage them, attitudes, profiles, types of marketing activity that will appeal to them, types of communication they respond to. It's all in there, and you can go down that rabbit hole as deep as you like. I've lost entire afternoon to this portion of the website, but maybe that's just me. But some good stuff there, worth a read, worth digging into. There's also the map. Everyone loves the map. This is really handy, particularly if you don't have a lot of budget and you don't have a lot of capacity to do really detailed, some of the more detailed profiling that I'll show in a second, some of the reports. This is a map of, excuse me, it's a map of the UK, obviously, we all know that. But you can write in and have a look at an area and have a look at the population of that area by audience spectrum profile. Quite top level. It's not getting super granular down to household level, but it is looking at a broad picture of what's going on there. I've randomly clicked on apparently Reading there. Reading has 24% commuter land culture buffs. And then in descending order, dormitory dependable, trips and treats, experience seekers, and so on. So if you want to just, particularly as a freelancer or a consultant, you might be working in a geographic area that you're not so familiar with, and you don't really know the population, don't have that kind of grounding that perhaps a venue would have there. This just really helps just kind of start to think about what might be going on in that area and what the kind of population types might be. And you might decide from there to go into some more granular profiling for a more bespoke area, but this can kind of help get you started. So, I see the chat is busy. Is there anything to pick up, Lucy, whilst I'm having a breather?
There was a question on how often we do the cultural participation monitor. I know some of it's ongoing, and we've got results on the page which I shared for multiple years. Do we know when there's the next?
The next one
I'm
is,
not aware that we do.
yeah, the next one I believe is going out in January, February time. That's the latest I've heard. We sort of try to do at least a couple a year. But yeah, I think it's January, February time for the next one.
And we did have another question about museums report, which was before my time, apparently. That was 2018.
Oh, before my time as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure that we know if we're doing another one. I don't know who did that one. I don't know if that's being
Yes,
updated, but
I've
um,
heard of it.
yeah, I mean, Christina, send us a note to the email that I shared the
Yeah,
answers at, and we can find out for you. I don't know the answer to that, but we can definitely find out with the data and research team,
yeah,
and get back to you if you want to shoot us an email on that.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, good question. Yeah, I'm curious now about that one myself, if there is anything on the horizon. Great, thank you. We've just sort of had on a bit of an audience spectrum theme there. We've just launched in the last 6 months or so, launched a new tool which we're hoping will sort of bridge the gap for people. If you came to this version of the event we did in June, you'll have seen a very early iteration of this. It's now kind of moved on a little bit, which we hope will bridge the gap for people between understanding audience spectrum and segmentation in this kind of hypothetical academic kind of way, and actually being able to apply it into the real world that they are operating in. It's something we hear a lot from people. Yeah, I get it, but what do I do with it? How do I make this real? And how does this work in my kind of world that I'm in as a marketing manager or a fundraiser or whatever? So we have developed, this is part of a project that we are working on at the moment, which is all around looking at the sort of ethical use of AI in the sector. It's a very hot topic, I know, for a lot of people. So we have very carefully and thoughtfully put together a tool which we're calling Audience Spectrum Genie, which is an AI. It's ChatGPT based, and it's just hopefully going to kind of be a critical friend for people to just ask questions of and get guidance of, because we would love to be able to work with people one on one all the time and help them through this stuff, but we just can't. It's not realistic, is it? So um, I'll just flick over here to Genie. I've preloaded a couple of queries into it. It looks like ChatGPT at the moment. There are plans to bring it in and integrate it with some of the tools that we've already discussed, the dashboards. But it is there available on ChatGPT for free for anyone that wants to use it. And just to give you an idea of the sorts of questions it can do, I've put one in there, which if you can't read it is, we want to grow our under-30s audience, suggest the audience spectrum segments we should target and some practical tactics. And then it's just gone out and listed out the segments. It suggested experience seekers, kaleidoscope creativity, frontline families, suggested why those are good segments to target, and it suggested some of the tactics that you could use. So you could then, either you or the organisation you're working with could then take that out into their own context and say, great, I've got tons of experience seekers in my area. Here's my strategy for going and engaging with them. Another query I gave it here. Is this a good example? I've got a few examples in here now. Yes, it's a bit different. It's about museums. A small museum in Northwest England with limited budget wants to engage new family audiences. Which segments offer the best opportunity and how should we target them? Again, it's done the same thing. It's picked out a couple of key segments to look at. It's drawing on data from that website I showed earlier with those profiles on, and it's also drawing on the map as well. So it's getting that kind of sense of relevant segments for the right area. And then it's giving some suggestions about how you could target those groups. So I think hopefully we can post the link in the chat if we haven't already. You can have a play with it. Some people love it. It's been very, very well received. Other people, understandably, are AI skeptical, and that's absolutely fine. We would love to hear feedback. Genuinely, we're developing this. We've got a really great team of people working on it. We're looking at ways it can get better, more useful, more valuable for people. So by all means, test it, chuck it some questions and see how it responds, and let us know. We're very up for that conversation and that kind of working in collaboration with people who are out there in the real world doing things. That is Jeannie. I had a couple of keeping an eye on the time, but I think we're fine. I just wanted to show a couple of the more off-the-shelf reports. We've had a look at the dashboard, we've had a look at some of the sort of tools in there, but there are circumstances, and certainly I've been in that world, where you just want a quick report about something that's a one and done. So we have a couple here that are particularly popular. I've got one actually. This one's particularly popular with consultants. We sell loads and loads and loads of these to consultants, and you may be very, very familiar with them, and you may be like, oh, shut up, Megan, I've heard about these 1,000 times. But if it's of interest, I'm a huge fan of these. I think they're so valuable. I've used them both as a venue marketing manager and as a freelancer. And they're basically a much more detailed version of that audience spectrum map I showed just now. You can define exactly the target area you want to look at. And then what we will do is we will go and pull all the relevant data we have about that area and present it in a single standalone report format. So particularly if you're working for an organisation in an area that you're not so familiar with, massively valuable, but just generally useful, I think, to maybe blast some misconceptions that might be had about the population in an area, or to justify why you're putting resource into certain things and not into other things. You can define that catchment area however you want. This example here has defined it by drive time. If you can't see, it might be a bit small. They've said a 15-minute drive time from a postcode. You could also define it by local authority area or by distance. Lots of different ways we can do it. And then you can also put in what we call a base area. This is essentially a comparison. So to give an example here, this is the base area and the comparison. This organisation is looking at, let me get this the right way around. It's looking at a small area here in Cardiff, and then it's going to look at a comparison of a much larger area of South Wales. So you can then start to get into, well, what makes this area distinct? What
Sorry to
makes,
interrupt, but we can still see the wrong screen.
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Let me just try and fire that up again. It was all going so well, wasn't it? It was all going so well. Here we go. Let's try this. Thank you. Is that better now? Can
Yes,
you see
thank
them?
you.
Thank you. See, this is why I need more coffee before I do these sessions. Appreciated. Um, this is the population profile report, not whatever you're looking at before. Um, these are these two areas I was mentioning, the target area in Cardiff and the wider base area in South Wales. And we'll give you data for both. And then it works through on by tab the audience spectrum segmentation of both those areas of the target area, the smaller area, versus the comparison. So you can start to see those differences. It gets into sub-segment level. I mentioned the sub-segments at the beginning, so you can get really granular and really look at those sub-segments. It also includes mosaic profiling. We know there's a lot of organisations out there who use mosaic and value it, so we pop mosaic in as well. We've got census demographics in here, various stripe. So we've got the general population data, we've got demographics, age, ethnicity. I'm going to scroll quite quickly and just say them in case you can't read them. Disability, sex and gender, sexual orientation, religion, household status, and deprivation indices as well. Then we get into stuff about housing. We have stuff about family structure. We have stuff about people's health and whether they are carers, how good their general health is, disability, language, language and nationality, country of birth. There's a lot in here. You get the idea. All the kind of key metrics that you see in the census will be in here for that very specific area. So if you do have target groups you're working with or target populations you're interested in, you can find it here as well. We then look a little bit at propensity to engage with arts and culture. This is drawn from data from Experian. It's general market research data that we pull from Experian, where where people are asked about their leisure activity and their leisure interests. So again, this can give you some clues about propensity to engage with things like visual art or music or plays or museums or whatever it is that's of interest to you. I won't go through the whole sheet. You get the gist. It's all there. These examples are available to have a look at as well in your own time. Really powerful thing you can, final segment on this report, really powerful thing you can do. These reports can be commissioned from us in a way that it breaks that area that you're looking at. In this case, it was that Cardiff city centre, wasn't it? It breaks that down by ward level. So it gets really, really granular. This is a beast of a spreadsheet to look at, I know, but an example of where you could perhaps use this is if you've got a very specific agenda to find a particular type of population and you want to know exactly where they are so that you can do some really detailed profile targeted marketing for them. An example of how I use this in the past is looking in the area I live in Salford, or was working in as well at the time, and I was looking for people who fell into a specific audience spectrum segment and I wanted to find them. So I could use this, I could sort the charts by highest to lowest, and I could say, aha, all my frontline families live in these wards. So that's where I should focus my engagement activity and go and do that there. So it's really useful, very practical, kind of real world report. I'm going to sharing that now and hopefully successfully go back to my slides this time rather than making a mess of it. She says. Anything else to pick up from the chat, Lucy, whilst I'm faffing around with this?
There was just a question about the support we offer for surveys, and our surveys are
Mm-hmm.
compliant for Arts Council Wales and for Creative Scotland, we have a extensive bank of questions that satisfy the funding needs for them and for Illuminate, I think.
Yep.
So the questions are all there for you that you would need, and there is our support team ready for any survey questions you may have. They deal with, I think it's
Mm.
safe to say, hundreds of surveys a year.
Yep.
So they're all really simple and straightforward to set up for you because we've done most of the hard work already. And the other thing with surveys is the answers are all collated for you as well. So if you do a survey through the audience agency, that dashboard will automatically be updated with the survey responses. So it's all really easy to get the answers as well. So whether you need help with setting it up or getting that information in at the end, we've got tools for both
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. And even the practical stuff like how to actually train field workers to go out and collect surveys. We've got people who can offer that training as well. So yeah, really, really a good specialist area of ours. Has my screen sharing worked? Can you see other projects now? Yes, yes, great. Very quickly for 2 minutes, I just wanted to flag a couple of other things that we work on. We're a big organisation, and I've talked a lot about audience answers, which is the name of the event. But a couple of other things might be of interest to you, other projects, other work that we do. We have for the last 2 years been working well. We've yeah, just 2 years, 2 years. This is year two. Let's Get Real is a year-long program of working with cultural organisations on various things over various specialisms. And this year the focus has been on AI. So we have been working with, I think, 14 cultural organisations over the last year to support them in experimentation, really, with AI in an ethical and a sustainable way. They will be sharing the results of what they've learnt at a conference in March in London. And alongside that, we're going to have some keynote speakers who will be very knowledgeable about AI in a way that I can only aspire to. And be, share some really, really good insights. We've got people from both inside and outside the cultural sector who will be there. And it's a really good day. I went to the conference last year it was in Bristol. It's a really good day, really inspiring, great energy, good people there. Really nice mix as well of cultural organisations and people like yourselves who are working adjacent to those organisations. So just something to flag. We've got a tiny number of super duper early bird tickets left. I think about 5 the last look. They will go probably by end of play tomorrow. So if you want to get in there and grab them, they're a bit cheaper now than they will be next week, basically. So now's your time if you want to come along for that day. A really big picture piece of work. This is my last slide, I promise. This is something, again, we mentioned this in the version of the session we did 6 months ago. So it's just a bit of an update, really. We're obviously cultural data is our thing, but we're very aware that and many people are that there is a huge amount of data out there. We're swimming in data, but it's only as good as the usefulness of it. And when it's very disparate and all over the place, it's less effective. So we, along with partners, are the Cultural Centre for Cultural Value at the University of Leeds. Along with My Cake and Culture Commons, we are collectively looking at ways we could start to knit all of this together in a way that makes sense for us as a sector and can help advocate for us better as a sector. I think when we spoke about it last time, it was very much totally in its infancy. We were all excited because it's brand new. And now we have progressed to a point when there is actually a prototype dashboard out there, which has been developed with Bradford and various partners in Bradford, which looks at all these layers of data that we have for a city region in a way that hopefully funding dependent, everything is funding dependent, can be replicated and rolled out. So we will definitely keep in touch about that. It's quite exciting. It's obviously aspirational. It's the sort of stuff that we all know we need as a sector, but aren't necessarily quite there yet in terms of producing. I think that's it. Well, that's it in terms of my slides. So what we can do now, if we want, is any questions that haven't been asked in the chat, we can pick up on, or we can wrap up there. Anything else from the chat that we should tackle whilst we're here, Lucy?
think we've touched on the main areas. Nobody has written anything else, and we've tried to
Okay.
share as many links as possible on that chat, but we will be sending the email afterwards, so that will have the links covering these bits that I've noted down as well for you. But we're always available. You can email audiences at the answers at the audience agency, and we'll send that to the right people, and the right team will get back to you. So whether it's a product or something more bespoke, or you need to know where to find something on site, we can get back to you afterwards if anybody has any questions they want to send through.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to stop the recording here.